This episode was recorded August 18th, 2025. Today, we're sitting down with Democrat Mac Deford as he launches his bid for SC1. That's a seat held by Representative Nancy Mace. She's giving it up to run for governor. Now, in our conversation, we talk about his personal life and his platform and address issues ranging from healthcare to immigration to infrastructure. We even get a little controversial and ask him how he defines a woman. We talked to Lowcountry voters. Trump was in true campaign form. Voting is officially underway. Joe Biden spoke here in the heart of downtown.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We have Mac Deford with us today. First and foremost, thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining me and agreeing to chat about the platform and the run for SC1.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nick.
All right. Well, let's actually get to know you just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Did you really have a kid a couple of weeks ago and then say, I'm going to run for government?
Yeah, it was more like several months ago. It's actually hard to believe he'll be 1 year old in 2 months. So
Wow.
in October. But yeah, so he's 10 months old and advancing wildly. So it's a great time to jump into running for government.
I can't imagine being a new father and saying, you know what, I want to take on a competitive race in SC1 and to be a government official in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. It would not work if you didn't have the support of family. I've got an incredible wife who is incredibly supportive, and luckily we have family close by, so it does help a lot.
You got the system worked out.
Yeah.
One of the major, I guess, components to your run that I've seen you put out there is you sort of relying heavily on your stint in the Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how that has shaped your decision-making, honestly, as an adult, but especially when we're looking at how you plan to lead?
Absolutely. I mean, I joined the Coast Guard straight out of high school, and I really what has propelled me to want to run for Congress is not just my background in the Coast Guard, but also my background having served in local government as a lawyer. And so a commitment to public service, but which has really been with me since I graduated from high school. I was all set to go to college when I was 18 and went to the recruiter's office and decided I was going to go active duty because, I wanted to actually do the missions and be out there helping to save lives and enforcing our nation's laws. And so that's what I did. I served as a federal law enforcement officer in the Coast Guard. I was a search and rescue crewman. My first assignment was in Baltimore, Maryland, where I was a Coast Guard police officer, and then down here at Station Charleston, I was the weapons and law enforcement petty officer, search and rescue crewman. So think going out there boarding container ships, making sure that bad stuff's not coming in or people coming in that are going to harm us, but also going out there and helping people that are in distress at sea. And so it was an incredible experience. As a 19-year-old is when I became a certified law enforcement officer in the Coast Guard. So, not even old enough to go out and have a beer, but you have law enforcement authority to enforce federal law. So it was an incredible experience. I had the opportunity and honor to serve alongside some of the best men and women that our country has to offer, and be the instrumentality of policy, really on the front line of that. And so that's something that definitely shaped my beliefs in terms of where I think our country ought to be headed, especially on the issues that I touched during my service in the Coast Guard.
Well, we're going to talk about those issues in a moment, but first set the stage for us here. This is not your first foray into the SC1 race. You ran last time and didn't quite make it in the primary, lost by but just about 3 points. So it was definitely close.
Yeah.
What makes this year different for you? Did you learn anything from the previous election that could make a difference this time?
Absolutely, and so the 3 points was the gap between what my opponent won by and what I lost by, but really the margin of loss is up to the 50.1%. So it was really about 1.4%. And I was outspent 2-1. First time candidate, started out in May of 2023, had not a clue what I was doing. So definitely much more focused now, much more intentional about how to run a good campaign. how to recruit the staff that you need to launch a good, solid campaign. You can't do this on your own. But yes, definitely learned a lot from my last go around, and I'm better for it. I'm not afraid of failure. I think that oftentimes, if you've never encountered failure in your life, then you're really not trying hard enough. You're going to fail at some point.
Yeah, I mean, when you were looking at, I guess, when did you decide that you were going to give it another go? Was it this year, or was it immediately after the primary last year? When did you decide I need to get back in there?
It definitely wasn't immediately after the primary, because primary was in June of last year, and then my son was born in October, so I was focused on that. But I would say I made the decision. My wife and I were talking a lot about it, but I probably made the decision back in March or so. April, we formed an exploratory committee. And so, and the purpose of that was really to make sure that the support was going to be there, both here in the district and outside, to make sure that people believe that this district could be flipped.
Flipping the district could be a tall task, especially with the redistricting that happened in 2020, which, the 2020 census anyways. Do you think that Democrats can win? I'm assuming you do, since you've decided to run, but how do you win in a district that has been redrawn to be a little more conservative?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you run by positing yourself and conveying to the electorate that you're going to actually address the issues that we are challenged with here in the Low Country. And it's my belief, and I think a lot of people share this belief, that the incumbent Congresswoman has not addressed many of those issues. When we think about housing, when we think about our infrastructure, our transit infrastructure, when we think about our environment, a lot of these things have fallen by the wayside, and we could significantly benefit if we just had a congressional representative who were focused on actually addressing these issues. So I think that you focus on the issues that actually touch people, regardless if you're a Republican or a Democrat. And then, of course, you have the national issues, and I have my thoughts on those, and, we can get into those. But at the end of the day, I think that at this moment in our country, when there's such a staunch political divide, or at least the media would give you the appearance that that's what we have, I think that we need leaders who are going to step up to show that there's actually probably a lot more that we agree on rather than what separates us. And I think if we begin to focus on those things, the other stuff we can address later, but let's focus on, the 8 of the 12 things that we probably agree on.
Well, I mean, let's dive into a little bit more to those, because at least on your website, it looks like some of the key platform issues that you've identified, and you've already mentioned them: housing, infrastructure, healthcare. Those are, I would think, some of the top ones out there. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your plans for fixing some of those issues.
Absolutely. I mean, housing is something that I've been up close and personal with. When I was the general counsel for the town of Hilton Head Island, I helped spearhead a first-of-its-kind workforce housing project. It's what I would classify as a conservative town council. So we did this in a more conservative-leaning, area of the district. That's scheduled to break ground, I think, early next year. But it's gonna mean so much for that community down there. We're talking about, let's dispel a couple myths real quick. When folks hear affordable housing or workforce housing, some people automatically, their minds jump to Section 8. That's not what this is. This is, when we talk about workforce housing or attainable housing, yes, we want to not exclude folks that would qualify from Section 8 from living in these communities, but it's also your police officers, your teachers, your hospitality workers, your nurses that have been priced out of the communities that they work in, or even that they work close to. So that, I think we need to find more solutions in our district for that. I talk to young people. One of the biggest concerns that they have is that the prospect of being able to afford a home one day just seems like that they're not going to get there until retirement. I mean, that's really depressing if that's where we are in this country.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about maybe affordable housing has the wrong connotation for folks, but I mean, housing you can afford, you know.
Yeah.
You also mentioned infrastructure earlier. Charleston has all sorts of infrastructure problems. I mean, you can really tell when you cross the border into like North Carolina that
Yeah.
we've got some road situations here that need addressing. What can you do in Congress to address some of those concerns?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, show up and vote for legislation or propose legislation that is actually going to benefit our national infrastructure and our regional infrastructure here in the Low Country. You know, unfortunately, the incumbent voted against a lot of infrastructure legislation up in Washington over the past few years. You know, has taken credit for when that money comes in, but that money was allocated for. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, refusing to chip in for pizza but taking the first slice, right? It's, you know,
Yeah.
you didn't chip in for it. You didn't really try to fight for it. So I think that's first and foremost, but also so much about infrastructure just because of the unique landscape of the Low Country. You've got a lot of, you know, wetlands and waterways that, you know, so we have to, you know, contend with bridges and whatnot, how best to construct them. You really need to be able to collaborate with the state and local governments, and you need to have a representative who understands what the role of the state plays, what the role of the federal government plays, what the role of the local municipalities and counties play. And, you know, having that local government experience, I think, would be invaluable to our district.
One of the other candidates on the Republican side is likely going to make this race about the way South Carolina interacts with ICE and immigration. We've seen a lot of stories coming out, whether it's Representative Mace rolling around in an ICE truck with her bulletproof vest on, or folks getting taken at schools. What do you think our relationship with ICE should be, and you know, what do you do about immigration? I mean, it's a hot topic right now.
Sure. Let me first start by saying this. I do not agree with how this administration is going about immigration enforcement. I believe in secure borders. I support having a secure border. I also support a fair, efficient, transparent immigration process. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We are the most powerful country in the world. We have solved seemingly the unsolvable in the past. We can solve this issue if we just stop kicking the can down the road. And both sides, Republicans and Democrats, have failed to really advance this issue in any meaningful way. But I think that when you have it so that, you know, the military is deploying into U.S. cities. Governor McMaster just sent 200, or he's about to send 200 National Guard troops in the midst of hurricane season up to Washington, D.C., right? And these folks are not trained for civil enforcement. They're not trained for immigration or deportation proceedings or activities. So I think that we need to pump the brakes on what's going on right now, how it's being handled. The administration sold border security on we're gonna deport the folks that are here that are violent criminals that are undocumented, right? MS-13 gang members, cartel members. Well, what we're really seeing are veterans being deported. We're seeing grandparents being deported, children being deported. So I think we're going about it the wrong way. You know, so much of here in the Low Country, for example, so much of our industry is dependent on immigrant labor. These folks, they work construction jobs, they work in agriculture, they work in hospitality. And so I think that we want people to be able to come here and contribute. If they want to contribute to our economy, if they want to partake in our American society, we should welcome them. But they should have to come here the right way. And we should have a system that is set up that facilitates that to happen.
Well, Republicans would argue, I think, that they're deporting criminals, right? And they define that as anybody who is here, who is overstayed a visa or came across the border illegally, anybody who's here illegally is a criminal according to them. Is that how you would define a criminal? It's somebody eligible for deportation?
I mean, you can look at the black letter law and make that argument. I think, though, we should be looking at, all right, if somebody has been here for 20, 25 years and they've overstayed a visa, but they are a contributing member of society, they are paying into Social Security despite the fact that they're not even going to get the benefit. Is that somebody that we want to deport? And not just that, but some of these folks that are getting deported are not even being deported back to their home country. We've seen where this administration has deported folks to Africa. I mean, that is just inhumane, unthinkable. If you're not even from the continent of Africa, and now you've found yourself in that foreign land. So again, I think that there's a humanity imperative here. There's an economic imperative here, and there's also a national security imperative here.
Let's switch gears a little bit because Representative Mace has also, one of her key things in Congress recently, at least, has been her stance on the transgender community. I'm curious where you stand. I think Democrats have been, they're just like every party, there's been very far left stances and there's been very sort of middle of the ground stances. Where are you on the issue of transgender, the transgender community, in particular things like transgender bathrooms, transgender folks in sports? Where are we here?
Yeah. Well, where we are is we're spending a lot of time talking about that. Nancy Mace has spent a tremendous amount of her political capital on this issue. What she's not addressing is housing. She's not addressing our environment. She's not addressing veterans' issues in the way that she should be. She's not addressing she's not putting forth any bills that actually get passed into law. First and foremost, I'll say this. I believe in respecting the dignity of the individual. That means that I don't think it's the government's role in our society to tell somebody who they are, who they should love. That identity is unique to every individual. And I would make the argument that under our Constitution, under the Fourth Amendment, it's a seizure of individual identity. If you're going to try to seize that from an individual, seize that right to make that determination. Now, you've raised other issues, about bathrooms and sports. I think that those issues, again, with regard to sports, it's a valid question. And I think it should be a discussion, not a yelling match, not something that, my way or the highway. We should have a discussion about it. We should have a compassionate discussion about it. And I think at the end of the day, though, those discussions should primarily take place with the school boards, they should take place with the sports leagues. And I don't know why we're spending so much time in the United States Congress talking about that when we have so many issues that we need to address that are impacting everyone's everyday lives. I think if you were to poll, and it'd be an interesting poll to be done, how many times a transgender person entered a bathroom or attempted to play in your sports league, has that actually impacted you? I would venture to say it's a very small percentage, if anyone in this district.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, he was here a month and a half ago or something like that. Maybe it was sooner. I can't remember. You were at that event, I believe.
Yes.
He talked a lot about how Democrats seem to have a messaging problem, and especially around like issues like, the transgender community or what have you. He basically said that we're having trouble communicating with everyday people. And, one of the things that Republicans always try and get Democrats with is, how do you define a woman? I mean, how would you define a woman?
Look, I think that, again, there is a scientific definition, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a medical provider. And And I think this goes back to Republicans love to try to push people into the corner, and they want to get a reaction out of you without actually addressing the overall issue. Again, this goes back to the dignity of the individual, okay? It's not my job. If I'm a member of Congress, it's not my job to go there and fight for legislation that tells so-and-so who they are or who they love. That's government overreach. Right? I mean,
which is a conservative principle, right? I mean, to some
Sure.
extent, conservatives are always about small government and local control, except apparently in certain issues like this one.
yeah, I mean, that government overreach and sending in the United States military into our nation's capital, into Los Angeles, and threatening to send it into other major cities. But yeah, I mean, with regard to that issue, I think too, you got to look at where does it stop? I mean, if the government can tell somebody, what their identity is, then are they going to start telling people, well, you know what, you really can't love who you actually love. We have to, we can't have same-sex marriage anymore. I mean, is that where we're headed? Because it certainly kind of seems that way when the government's trying to intercede into some of the most intimate aspects of our personal lives.
I want to circle back to Bashir one more time, just because, he seems to be a template, not the template necessarily, but a template for how you win in a conservative state. You're running in a conservative state. You listen to him speak. Did you take anything from his strategies, from his ideas that you think would play well here in Charleston?
I mean, I think if anything, it's reinforced the fact that you need to talk to people about the issues that are impacting them, right? One of the things that Democrats get hit on a lot was, during the presidential race last year, the Democrats were saying the economy is great, but people were still feeling like it wasn't. And now we're seeing things play out that I think are going to have a negative impact on us, such as the administration's position on tariffs. It may not be such an immediate act, and we can get into that. But I think that, Governor Beshear's visit, what it reinforced to me is you just have to talk to people about what they're concerned about, what is impacting them. And then once you can learn what that is, you go out there and you advocate for solutions that are going to lift them up. And I think that's what he's done in his state, and he's had success with that. And honestly, I think that a lot of us in South Carolina and across the country could benefit from that type of leadership.
Yeah, it's kind of ideas over rhetoric, honestly.
Yeah.
If you've got the good ideas and it resonates with people, hopefully you win enough support to win, right?
Right.
I want to touch on one final topic here. We kind of talked about it a little bit off camera as well, but your Twitter account is has become the Nancy Mace fact-checking Twitter account. Talk to me a little bit about why you've taken on this. I'm not sure if it's a calling or you feel like it's a duty to do, but it seems like when Nancy Mace tweets something, you're right there saying, actually, these are the facts, or kind of calling her out. Why'd you decide that you were going to sort of check her every time she says something?
Well, she's my congresswoman, right? I mean, she's supposed to be representing me in addition to the hundreds of thousands of other constituents that are here in the 1st Congressional District. And so when she says something, when she tweets something, or she gets on camera and says something that's just patently false, she needs to be held accountable. I mean, again, she's representing all of us, right? I'm a lawyer. If I misrepresent a position of my client in court, I could be sued for malpractice, right? Now, we don't have that same level of accountability with politicians, unfortunately. I guess you could argue you can vote them out, but they can't be sued for it necessarily. And so I've taken to holding her accountable. I mean, when she says that that she's responsible for infrastructure money coming into the district. Yeah, maybe through the congressional earmark process, which is an administrative process where local governments submit paperwork to their congressional reps, their senators, about projects that they need money for that's been allocated by Congress, that passed bills that went to the president that were signed into law. But has she actually advocated for that legislation? Did she vote for it? The answer is no.
All right, what message do you want to leave the voters with?
The biggest thing that I want to convey to voters in the 1st Congressional District is don't just look at the letter next to a candidate's name, regardless of what level they're running at, whether it's the presidency all the way down to the school board. Well, school boards are nonpartisan. But, take time to actually learn about the candidates, educate yourself. I mean, you can go on my website at defordforcongress.com. I'm accessible. I like getting out there and meeting folks. I want to know what you're thinking, regardless if you're a Republican or Democrat. And because, at the end of the day, again, your congressional representative is going to Washington, D.C. to represent your interests in our nation's capital. And so, and it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. Everyone should be entitled to the same level of representation. That's exactly the kind of leadership that I would want to bring to Washington on behalf of the folks here in the Low Country.
All right, Mac Deford, thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.